We're tackling tough times in this month's Well-Read segment. Best-selling author Chantel Guertin joins us now with her picks. Sometimes it's good to read a story about trouble and tough times, because then it's like either relatable or it's like, well, that person's situation is way worse than mine.
That's a really good way of looking at it. I know I was like, this is not the most uplifting theme that I've picked.
But it can be.
But yes, and all the books were such good page turners. So the first one is What She Said, by Elizabeth Renzetti, who is, she was a Globe and Mail columnist. She is one of my friends. And so as she was writing this book, it was always interesting to hear like what she was. So it's her take sort of on gender equity and women, and how we, you know, she puts it as like, we thought we've came so far, but then when you look at all the things that women are asked to do, and she ranges everything, you know, from like, just even like, menstruation and menopause, but then to other things like NDAs when there's been sexual harassment or things like that. And, you know, she's so smart and she writes in such a witty way. And so even though it's like serious topics and it feels a little like, maybe you're like, oh gosh, this is like, you know, sort of a reality check. It's so funny too. And it's so great. It's one of those books you could read it all in one sitting, or you could pick it up and like kind of read chapter by chapter, because she tackles different topics.
Yeah, it's on my to be read pile because I'm getting so much buzz from this one.
Yes. Oh, and you know what the best part is? I brought the physical copy, but I'm listening to it. I listen to it on audiobook and she reads it. So I love that because, you know, you get to hear her. I love that when it's the author reading their own work.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, the next one is the Sophie Kinsella, and it's called What It Feels Like. Sophie Kinsella is known for like her rom-coms, the Shopaholic series.
Yeah.
Like she's such a funny writer, and this book is it's fiction, but it's really based on her own life. So she discovered that she has glioblastoma, the brain cancer. This happened in 2022, but she has recovered. But of course, that's such a terrible cancer to have. And so she decided, instead of just like, you know, writing an article for the paper about discovering it and going through that, she instead wrote it's very close to her life. It's fictionalized. And she said in the back of the book that just like let her just kind of like write it without thinking. But I mean, you know, pretty much it's exactly her story, but it's so sad, of course. She's so young, but it's really funny and uplifting, actually. And I think it's like almost like a really good guide for someone, even. Anyways, I really highly recommend that one. Okay, so then next up we have We All Want Impossible Things. This is by Catherine Newman. So I think last month I talked about Sandwich by Catherine Newman, which is her most recent book. So then I thought, oh my gosh, I loved her writing so much that I wanted to go back and read the book that she had written before that.
This is an older one.
Yes, exactly. So it's a few years old. And this is the story of a woman who goes and takes care of her friend who is dying. So it's, again, not the greatest situation, but it's such a beautiful story of friendship.
And gift.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And just like everything about the way they talk to each other is so wonderful, and they're funny and everything. And it just feels like, even though you know what's going to happen, it's such a great story.
And the last one left, we've got less than a minute. Anything is Possible by Elizabeth Strout.
Okay, so Elizabeth Strout is kind of, she has a new book that just came out, and then on Can Stage, the first in the Lucy Barton series.
Yeah,
so,
My Name is Lucy Barton.
Yeah.
I love that book.
So she really focuses on small towns and the characters. And so you can follow the Lucy Barton series, which has 4 books in it. This is the second book. So I thought if you had seen Can Stage or read the first one, this is the next one. But what I really like about this one, it won the Notable Book Award in 2017, is that all the stories, again, you could read each chapter on its own because it each focuses on a different story in the town, different characters. So Lucy Barton is in it, but so are a lot of the other characters that show up in her other books.
Yeah, and you kind of get a look of their perspective on the stories that way, right? It's like a character that I didn't like in the first one. I kind of like, oh, I see why you're that way.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And you just like, I think you said it before we got on air, that you just feel like you know them. They feel real. It's just like you're getting a peek into all the characters in a town. I know, me too.
Okay. So troubling issues, but great reads. Great reads. Chantel, thanks very much. We'll get all your socials up on our website, chch.com/morninglive.